pauses for a moment. He's like, I will kill you. And he says that multiple times. He's like, just deadpan, I will kill you. Welcome once again to Chill Filtered, the podcast where we drink whiskey so you don't have to, but you probably should, and you probably are, and that's why we like you. Another round, another week, another day, another $1, and another dollar, another Ben Klepzig. And Ben is back for his second round interview test episode against Bryan Rapp. This is kind of the final round with him and Bryan, duke it out. Great feedback we got from the survey. Great feedback for Ben. Did I call you Bryan?
No, you referenced Bryan, but
okay. I just had Bryan in the back of my head. I was like, did I just call you that? No, that's weird. So anyway, Ben, it's good to have you back. And first of all, I have a question. But first is, what are you entry buzzing on?
I am entry buzzing on a well-reviewed whiskey from the podcast, the Highland Park 14.
You went in the same direction I did. So Highland Park, a Highland, like not a Highland. It's technically out of the Highland realm, but it's in the top of Scotland, basically.
Yeah, and it's a nice low proof. It's not going to compete with what we're drinking. So,
and it's the 14 year. Did I say?
Yeah.
That's a good one. So I went with Glenmorangie 18 or Glenmorangie 18 because it's up near the distillery we're drinking today. And so I was like, and then you thought the same thing, I'm sure. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So Ben.
Yes.
We were talking before we started recording and I was like, this is too interesting to not record on. So we're just going to pick up where we left off. I was talking about your experience. You went to Colorado recently, and I recommended you go to the Stanley Hotel. 2 reasons. One, it's a really cool, scary, like weird hotel. And
it was haunted. The one that inspired The Shining. Yeah,
yep, that's exactly right. It wasn't where they filmed it, of course, but it's what's his name? Stephen King said he was so creeped out. Yeah. And so I was like, you got to go there. But they also have one of the best whiskey bars in the state of Colorado. So.
Amazing. It was like 1,300 bottles or something crazy.
Dang.
Yeah. So I had to, and so my family went on the Tell Spooky Ghost Stories tour of the hotel, and they walked around and heard about how haunted the place was. And I stayed at the bar and had 3 or 4 awesome whiskeys you couldn't get anywhere else.
Do you remember what?
I don't remember. I do remember. One of them was an Adelphi independent bottling of Bunnahabhain.
Say no more.
It rocked and I have seen that bottle in stores, and it's a $600 bottle. And it great. I can't bring myself to do it, but it felt worth it, even though I'm not going to buy it.
So, that's the thing about Islay Scotches is that, Bunnahabhain, Laphroaig, Ardbeg, Lagavulin, the big 5 or so, can't go wrong. Kilchoman is good, but it doesn't compete, in my opinion, to the big 5. And I'm not a huge Lagavulin fan, but sometimes some of the stuff they put out is incredible.
Yeah, and I trust Bruichladdich in there as well.
100%. Bruichladdich in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other one I forgot to mention. But Bunnahabhain is so underrated in the Islay department. People are like, that looks weird. It's a short, stubby bottle. I'm like, it's one of the best short, stubby bottles you'll ever have. But so you were saying, I was talking about the night I spent in the Stanley, but then you started talking about your daughter. And
so it's we haven't pulled this off yet, but my daughter is fascinated by ghost stories and haunted places. And anytime there's a haunted hotel, she wants somebody in our family group to stay in the haunted room, not her. And so what she wants is for me to stay in the haunted room, and for her and Mama to stay in a different room. And then periodically they'll check on me to via phone to see if I'm still alive.
That's so good.
There's a place in Marquette, Michigan that supposedly has a haunted room, and it is, the hot property to get into. And I'll be honest, cool. I would be, I don't believe in ghosts, but I would be a little freaked out. I would think I would have a little bit of a hard time falling asleep.
Yeah. No, the first time I spent a night in my wife's parents' place, it was hard falling asleep. And I wasn't even sure, like I was ready to explain everything away, but it was still creepy. Like it was still like, what was that sound? What was that rush of wind? Like, is it colder in here than it should be? And like all these different things I'm feeling.
I had a friend in college that told me a ghost story that she said really happened to her, and she
Mm,
saw the ghost of a high school friend
mm,
who died by suicide,
I
and
gotcha.
it was like she was confident that it happened, and she was
Yeah.
so confident that it kind of shook me a little bit. And I called up my
Yeah.
brother and said,
Mm,
"Okay, Kier, my brother's Kier, Kier." I said, okay, if in case it's possible for one of us to haunt the other, we should
yeah.
totally haunt each other. So we kind of
Uh-huh.
struck a deal that
That's
whoever
great.
dies first is going to try and haunt the other one. And
Hmm.
then we started coming up with like cool ways to do it, like,
To prove
in
it. Yeah.
a thunderstorm, and you just do the silhouette on the hillside as the lightning goes
Mm.
up and stuff, just trying to make it extra creepy.
So I definitely did not. Well, I did believe in ghosts, but I was very ready to scientifically explain everything away
Mm-hmm.
until I stayed at my like in-laws place, which I've told stories about that before. But when we spent the night at the Stanley, it was we shared a room. We had two twin beds. My wife and I were in one, and then my in-laws were in one. And my in-laws are great, so it was like cool. But we all kind of knew. And then my in-laws sister, my mother-in-law's sister, and her husband were in a separate room. And so it's like, hey, we're here because of the
The
reputation.
stories,
We're
right?
not
Yeah.
here to spend a regular night. And so I slept like a baby that night. No one else did. And I was fine. But my father-in-law had a scratch down the side of it, like down the shoulder blade on his back when he woke up in the morning. Apparently sounded like kids were running in the hallways past like midnight. And I didn't, I'm dead
Yeah.
asleep, but this is what other people are telling me. And it was like multiple accounts, like the aunt and my wife heard children in the hallway, like screaming and running and playing. And but here's the craziest one to me. The next morning, things are weird. What's that scratch on my father-in-law's back? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe that's explainable. It's actually 100% explainable. Like maybe it was my mother-in-law who accidentally scratched him or something like that. Maybe, actual kids were running down the hallway or something. Like they should be in bed. But the next thing was pretty crazy. So we woke up the next morning and we're packing up. We're putting all our clothes away and putting our suitcase on the bed to fill up with stuff so we could zip up and go. And my father-in-law remembers very clearly putting his key card on the center of the bed, not the edge of the bed, the center of the bed. He said, "This is where I'm gonna, pick it up." And all of a sudden, it's gone. And we're all like, "Okay, well, is it on the?" We're looking right under the edges of the bed. We're like, "Okay, we're not gonna like crawl down, but like, let's look to see." Because it would have, if it fell off, it would have fallen maybe just below the bed or around the bed. So we looked all over. We looked in the bags. We looked everywhere. Finally, we find the key card in the center of the bed underneath the bed.
Huh.
It's explainable, 100%
Yeah.
explainable, but really weird.
Yeah,
And
it all
yeah.
does make me think of the great line from Ghostbusters when they go to the library, and he
Hmm.
says, "No human would stack books this way." Has to be
So
supernatural.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I I also, when my sister passed a few years ago, it would have been about 3 years ago now. Um, my mom and my whole family's, well, not my whole family, but some of my family is pretty religious and definitely believes in a spiritual realm. When she passed, my mom said, she prayed. She said, if if you're with Trisha right now, my sister, God, make it snow all of a sudden. And it wasn't on the forecast, it wasn't anything like that. And it started to snow like 30 minutes later. And I was like, dang. Um, and then I kept that in mind because it was 0% on the forecast. There was like no chance of it during the day. I mean, it was November in Colorado, which is, it could happen. But the fact that it wasn't on the forecast was crazy. When Beck was born in Arizona, where it is not likely to rain if it's not on the forecast, especially a sprinkle, like it might downpour, but it's really rare to even downpour. But like that's even more rare is a sprinkle in the summer.
Mhm.
and it was June, like it was like the day or two later. It was the day after we had Beck in the hospital, June 21st, in
I'm glad that
Arizona,
you
in
remembered her.
Phoenix.
That I thought for a
Yes.
second you forgot your daughter's birthday, but you pulled it in. That was good.
The hard one is that the other one's June 2, and she's also June 29th, so it gets crazy. But so we walk out of the hospital to take Beck home, and it starts sprinkling, and I was like, okay, I think this is, if this isn't random
Yeah.
and it is spiritual, this is Trisha right now. So, and Trisha would have been obsessed with Beck, like just wouldn't have let her go. Like that's who my sister was. So
Yeah. Well, that's
but
good.
yeah. No, that's funny. So you should do that. You should totally go to that Marquette hotel and you should like force your daughter. Is this your 16-year-old?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, you should totally force her to do it and be like, hey, you're sleeping in the car if you're not coming in. So she would probably sleep in the car actually. No,
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
yeah. But that's cool. Is she like, does she watch like or listen to like podcasts or
No, I mean
shows
she's
or anything?
she and her mama love watching horror movies.
Nice.
That's not my jam, and so they start a horror movie. I don't know. I'll go into the whiskey room or something and let them enjoy their fun. So
that's funny. I'm not too big into. I mean, I can enjoy a horror movie, but it's not my jam. Yeah,
I like creepy, tense movies. I can do that. But like gore and people screaming and dying, and no, I don't do that.
Not my thing. Yeah, especially like for the sake of goriness. Shout out to Whiskey Morgue though. Have you ever seen that
I have
Instagram?
No, what is Whiskey Morgue about?
Oh, he just does like he'll do like pictures of the dram he's drinking, and then in the background you'll see like a snippet from some horror movie. Great YouTube channel. I'm gonna see if I can mention him on the
this is kind of our Halloween episode, Cole.
Yeah, you're right.
How did that happen?
So this comes out on Halloween, right?
All right, what's the best Halloween costume you ever did?
That's a great question. I don't go it's not that I wish I could go hard, or I guess it's the day after this comes out, but I wish I could go more hard when it comes to like costumes and stuff. But I remember when I was a kid, it wasn't about the showmanship or anything like that. It was more about the practicality, and I'll explain. So of course I love candy. I'm like probably 12 at the time, and I had this friend that was always egging me on, and like in a good way. Like we would not in a good way. It was a bad way, but it was towards each other. Like it was like back and forth. Hey, you should do this. You should do this, and it was like always get us into trouble later. But never like mean or like against each other or anything, egging on. And so I was a cloud, and I got this like a bunch of cotton balls and made this whole thing, and I was like a cloud. And so when we showed up to a door, looking back, it was a little different, but when we showed up to a door and said trick or treat, I'd be like, Merry Christmas. And then my friend would be like, oh, don't worry about him. His head's in the cloud. And then I'd be like, he is a cloud, and we'd start like fake laughing and be like, as we reach in the bucket.
So you had a stick, that old stick to try and get more candy,
exactly, and we always did. So, What about you? Are you big into it?
Not huge into it, but I did it some in college, and then of course when I was a kid. Now I'm a little bit older than you, and I'm part of that Gen X generation where you just latchkey kids, and nobody really cared if you were out until all hours. And so Halloween, we would be out for like 3 hours by ourselves, just going neighborhood to neighborhood. And if there was I remember one year I had like my whole costume was just like a mask, like a werewolf rubber mask. And if we went to a house that I liked the candy, I'd go around the corner, I'd take off my kind of overshirt, my little jacket shirt, take the mask, reverse it so that it almost looked like a Michael Myers kind of white mask, and go back and hit him again.
See, we were thinking the same thing. It was all about it was about return on investment as opposed to the show. That's so funny. I thought I was the only one who did that kind of stuff, or at least of the close friend group.
And our candy bag was like the mattress or the pillowcase from your bed,
always, and because it would rip otherwise.
Right, it'd get like half full. I mean, like I would go hard.
Yeah. Same. We had this one neighborhood. I didn't even like trick or treat in my neighborhood because my lot was like 3/4 of an acre. So we would go to the neighborhood like half a mile down the road where it was like house, and we would just fill it on up. I think I counted one time 18 pounds
I
of
remember
candy.
when I was starting out in life, my first homes were apartments in buildings,
Uh-huh.
and we would buy all the candy, be ready for trick or treaters, and nobody would come to trick or treat the apartment
So
buildings.
sad.
Man, when I was a kid, if I could buzz my
That was
way
the
into an
place.
apartment building, that's a
Hmm.
jackpot. You just
Yeah.
go door to
Door
door
to
to door
door.
to door.
Hmm.
Even if they don't have
Yep.
candy, they go find something in the cupboard for you.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, "Do you want some raisins?" We're like, moving on to the next.
A
Yeah.
packet of ramen here.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. What's that? He gives him his watch in Big Daddy with Adam
oh
Sandler.
yeah, yeah. Well, and there's my mind works in movie and TV quotes.
Hmm.
They just come out of my mouth
That's
all the
good.
time. And so
We dig it.
anytime anybody, like if something happens that's a little disappointing, I'll
Hmm.
say under my breath, I got a rock, which is Charlie Brown, what he got every damn time he went to.
uh,
Everybody else got all this great candy. Rock.
oh, that's great. No, I totally think in that stuff, especially like stupid movies. Like my
A lot of
favorite
Adam Sandler.
comedy is
Yeah.
Nacho Libre.
Oh, that's a great
And
movie.
yeah, I'm so
I,
glad we just connected with that.
One of my favorite lines from
Uh-huh.
that, which nobody's seen this movie and nobody gets it. It's
Oh,
like
it's so
when
good.
he's caught in the room trying on his outfit, and this little kid looks at him weird, and he says, "Sometimes grown-ups wear stretchy pants. It's for fun."
He's my favorite line in that whole movie is when he starts getting money from wrestling, so he then starts buying nicer clothes, and so Encarnacion, the nun, is like, Ignacio, where are your robes? And he's like, they were a stinky. And he goes, see, these are my recreation pants. And she goes, they look expensive. He's like, thank you. I mean, they may have the appearance of riches, but beneath the clothes you find a man, and beneath the man you find his nucleus. It's like the best line.
That's
Like,
so
I don't
good.
even like Jack Black. I don't really like Jared Hess, the director. I love Nacho Libre. It just
Oh, that's
does
such
not
a
get
good
old to
movie.
me. It's so
Yeah.
good. So anyway, how far are we? We're 20 minutes. No, we're like 18 minutes or so in. But let's see. Is there any week fun updates for you?
I would. This is probably more of a story than we have time for, but the
Uh-huh.
my I kind of wear my nerd flag proudly. There's all kinds of
Uh-huh.
things that I'm a little extra nerdy about,
Totally.
and one of them, I think we've talked about this a little bit before, is Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm,
I've played Dungeons and Dragons since I was in middle school,
nice.
and my buddy is the dungeon master for a campaign that
Okay.
we're doing, and so last Friday we played, and it was all like Alice in Wonderland themed. So if
Oh,
you could remember
interesting.
any parts of the plot of Alice in Wonderland, it helped you to get through the
Oh,
dungeon.
interesting.
And at the same time, he works for the State Historical Society, and
Mm.
this upcoming year is the 50th anniversary of the invention of Dungeons and Dragons,
Oh,
which
that's
was
cool.
done in Wisconsin by a
No
Wisconsin
way.
citizen. And so the
God
Wisconsin
bless
Historical
Wisconsin.
Society is
Uh-huh.
doing a whole thing about it. Like, so
That's
he's
so
writing
cool.
a D&D module that I
That's
play tested,
cool.
and then I'm donating my books from high school
Nice.
for their museum display.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a Wisconsin invention.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Dude, so many people underestimate Wisconsin. I'll tell you this, Ben, is that my wife, when when I was like, hey, I want to go to Wisconsin and do this school program there for a year, she's like, no. And I was like, okay. And then I took the interview that I was given and didn't tell her that I interviewed. And later I was like, after the interview, I'm like, so I had an interview with the program. She's like, I thought this was off the table. Like, we're not going to Wisconsin. And then it was official. We're going to Wisconsin. And then she God bless her. She cried herself to sleep for a few nights because she's like, I don't want to leave my parents. I don't want to leave Virginia. I don't want to go to friggin' Wisconsin. And by the time, and she's like, that's the worst accent out of all the American accents, and all these rude things to say about Wisconsin. But eventually, after being there a year, we were like looking for jobs there because we loved it there. It was such a fun place to be.
I kind of don't mind it being a little bit of an underrated state.
Totally. Yeah, it keeps the Californians out. Am I right? No. But that's the problem with Boise. When Robbie came on, I was like, tell me about how great Boise is. He's like, no, because it's kind of keeps some people at bay. But what's funny? You before we go into our break and whatever, you sent a photo of some scotches, independent bottle. No, somewhere independent, I think, but somewhere like Campbelltowns and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I was like, I know where that is. And that's the Steve's I used to work at on University Avenue.
You worked at the University Avenue one. I wasn't sure which one you worked at. Yeah.
I forget what my manager's name was, but he's got like the parted hair. If you've ever seen him, he's a tall guy, parted hair. He was awesome. Great people there. And one of the best things was when I worked there probably 9 or 10 months out of the year that we lived there. And by the time it was Christmas, they handed out an antique collection bottle to pretty much all the employees. And I got a stag. It was amazing. It was like the best. I mean, we all paid for it, but it was like, hey, here's your bottle. And it was like $100. Yeah.
For people who are like excited to get the allocated and upset that they can't get the allocated, I totally buy into that. I mean, you got employees who've been working hard and helping the organization. Give them a little access. That's cool.
Totally. Especially because that's the thing too, is like we were all well versed in certain things. Maybe not all of us were well versed in wine, but I was very well versed in whiskey at the time, and like it was just a good time working there because like when people would talk to the manager and be like, "Hey, Cole recommended me this amazing whiskey," and the guy that hired me was like, "Yeah, I could see his experience already, and all those things." But it was nice. It was a great place to work. Shout out to Steve's, University Avenue, Madison, Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I thought it was funny. It was like the smallest snippet of a photo. I was like, I know where that is, and I know it's facing north.
You knew the price tag and what it looked like, and
exactly. That was it too. I was like, that definitely looks like a Steve's price tag. So that's great. Well, now that we've talked a good amount, which I love, let's head over to our next segment of the show. We like to call break, and then we'll get into the history. We're drinking today Dalmore 18. We believe it's the 2019 release, but we're gonna risk it and hope it's that because we don't know exactly because they don't put it on the freaking bottle. Come on, Dalmore. But we have really fun history today because it's not just Dalmore history. It's you know what? I'll leave it to the imagination. What we're going to talk about.
So good.
So let's send it a break and we'll be right back. And we're back. I forgot how good Glenmorangie 18 is. It's like honey. Refreshing. Notes to get to this week. I got none. Happy Halloween tomorrow. So we're drinking Dalmore 18, like I just said. This is our second episode on a Dalmore product. Episode 196, we drank Dalmore King Alexander III. Now, King Alexander III release had no age statement like the one we're drinking today, which has an age statement. Unlike, rather. But it had some crazy finishes. It had ex-bourbon barrels, Matusalem Oloroso sherry butts, port pipes, Madeira barrels, Marsala casks, and casks that aged Cabernet Sauvignon. Not the case today, or at least not as crazy today. Dalmore 18 isn't as interested as in crazy finishes, but we do have a great age statement on it. And it's a little higher in proof, but we'll get to that. But since we covered some Dalmore history on episode 196, let's talk about someone associated with Dalmore, the legend, the Richard Paterson, the master blender of Dalmore. So that's what the history is going to be about today, a person. So Richard Paterson, OBE, and OBE stands for Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. Skipped a few words in the acronym.
Well deserved. Get on with it, man. He's awesome.
100%. So apparently there's CBE, which is a commander in the whatever most excellent order of the British
It's all
Empire.
kind of like steps to get to knighthood, right? So
Yeah.
he's like a level or two below sir.
2 levels below sir, which
Yeah.
like I didn't know. I thought you were just like sir, like the queen's like, I like this guy. So but maybe I have a feeling he will be knighted before he dies. But anyway,
Do you think that there's a queen actually? You did a little chopping motion. Does she do the whole sword thing?
you got to turn the sword sideways so you don't chop. But yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Maybe. No, that's totally how they knight people.
King Charles, I would be worried that he would chop.
Yeah.
He seems a little iffy. Yeah.
Yeah. He's probably, I see like caricatures of him and they're never flattering. I'll tell you that. So
Sorry if we offended anybody who's really into the British royalty.
Or potentially Scottish and they're into the British world from Scotland. Maybe Richard Paterson's listening and we love it if you are. I'll tag him a bunch of times or something like that. But anyway, he's been working for Dalmore for 57 years. The Highland Scotch distillery in the northern Highland region of Scotland, not in the typical Speyside area, like the kind of the northeast portion. He's in the northwest upper portion, or at least Dalmore is. And yeah, 57 years. That's a long time. He started when he was 17 years old. And the distillery has been at it for 180 years plus, and so he's been there for almost a third of their history.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah,
for a long storied thing to have that guy for that long, that's great.
Yeah, seriously, and he's like worked around like he. So what I do have to say is that oh, well, I'll get to that in a moment. But I've seen some like things saying that like Richard Paterson is the reason Dalmore is a recognizable brand, because he's very much a charismatic kind of guy, like very much about marketing and stuff like that. Hey, funny. That's the name of the co-host. But yeah, really put it on the map. His nickname is literally the Nose. Which I think is great. And it's pretty widely known that he is the most experienced master blender in the game of Scotch. He technically works for, as opposed to Dalmore, and has worked for White and Mackay, which is basically like a larger company with a portfolio of whiskeys. But one of them is Dalmore. Jura is under there. Shackleton, which we drank on the podcast, is under there. And many more. But he's their like master blender for that whole thing.
Sure.
Recently, he picked up a side gig, actually, and he's staying on with Dalmore, but he's picked up as the master blender as well at Wolf Craig Distillery, which I also believe is in that northern section. I actually believe it's not too far from, if I'm thinking of the right one, I'm pretty sure it's pretty close to like where you jump over the ocean to get to Highland Park. Okay. I think he's on the lower end of that. Or at least Wolf Craig is. And they're an independent distillery, not owned by White and Mackay. Anyway, here's what I love most about Richard Paterson. And if you watch any YouTube video of him, you'd likely agree with me. But he's like an absolute goofball. But he like takes he doesn't take himself serious, but he pretends to take himself seriously. He's surrounded definitely by his reputation and his big status in the whiskey world. But he is so funny and just the perfect amount of don't take yourself seriously. He's known to pour a very fancy glass of scotch and then just toss the liquid on the floor. Does it all the time. And then sometimes he'll do it twice. Like he'll be like, it's not ready. Got to clean the glass a little more. And he'll be like super serious and he'll be drinking, in the video or about drinking and tasting and enjoying whiskey. And then he'll just be like, pour, and like you won't even notice, like, did you just throw it on the ground? And he's like, yeah, it's empty glass. Like it's just so funny. And I watched a few videos today and laughed just out loud by myself watching him. And the funniest part to me is he'll be in multiple videos. He does this. He's usually got a stemmed Glencairn type glass, and he's like you hold it from the stem, you don't hold it from the bulb, you don't hold it under the bulb, and if you hold it under the bulb and start stiffening it, and he pauses for a moment, he's like, I will kill you. And he says that multiple times. He's like, I like just like deadpan, I will kill you. And then he'll be like, he'll hold the glass to his nose and go, hello, how are you? Quite well. Thank you very much. And like just the way he like speaks to
That's
the
my
whiskey.
favorite. He does it so fast, like, hello, how are you? Very well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
He's such a goofball, but it's so funny because you get this guy who's like this absolute legend in Scotland, and like just everyone knows his name in the Scotch world.
Well, it
especially
like
out there.
demystifies it all, right? I mean, because it's, Scotch is like the hoity-toityest of the brown liquors, totally. And let's go to Bordeaux in France or Napa Valley in California, and let's all get snooty and stuffy. And for him to just puncture himself and the industry is so welcoming.
Oh, totally. And the funny thing is being a master blender is really hard work. Like, not only are you dealing with like tasting and blending and stuff, like you're dealing with sourcing and taking care of the barrels that you're getting, making sure you're getting the right kind of barrels, like all this kind of stuff is like no joke. But then
I think back to the conversation that you had with the Found North guy, where it's like, blending. Obviously he had a good palate, and his brother had a good palate, and they had a vision. But they found the hard way. It's so hard to get there, right?
100%. And that's like what's so cool is like, I mean, that shows when you're in the business for 57 years or whatever. So anyway, all I can say is if you haven't watched a YouTube video of Richard Paterson, and that's Paterson with one T, please do it and you won't regret it. He's 74 years old today, and he says retirement is not in my vocabulary. So keep going, Richard Paterson. We love you. So cheers to him. Today, we're drinking a Dalmore product. We're drinking Dalmore 18, and we're assuming this is the 2019 release. What a beautiful bottle. It is actually a nice looking bottle with that stag on it. And we talked about it last time, that the stag represents this like deer that like charged at King Alexander III, and this homeboy that was like in the line of the Dalmore or whatever like came after the deer and like took him out so it didn't hurt the king. And so that's kind of cool. That's why the stag with one G is on the bottle. So so we talked about Richard Paterson and how his role was master blender. Does that mean Dalmore 18 is a blended Scotch? No, it's a little tricky of a term, but blended Scotch versus like single malt Scotch can be somewhat confusing. Similar to American whiskey, almost all of whiskey is a blend of barrels. But does that mean it's a blended, whiskey or something? No. In Scotland, blended Scotch mostly means that there's multiple distilleries involved. For example, single malt means that there's one single distillery and a few other rules. But we won't get into that. But it means all the juice was from the same distillery. And Dalmore 18 is a single malt Scotch. So everything came from Dalmore in this case. Like I said, it's a yearly release. And it's always 86 proof, 43% alcohol by volume. So it's low on the proofage. But every year they do different, slightly different finishes, but nothing as crazy as we'd see for like King Alexander III.
Do you want me to read what's on the back of the bottle?
Please. Yeah, that'd be great, actually.
So, matured initially for 14 years in American white oak ex-bourbon casks. Nice. Okay. This whiskey is then transferred to 30-year-old Matusalem Oloroso sherry butts for a further 4 years.
So it's a 18-year? Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But 4 years matured after 14 in ex-bourbon.
Nice. So it's I think a really sweet spot for Scotch is like 18 years. I mean, heck, this Glenmorangie is killing me right now. It's so good. So, what do you? The total wine price is around $250.
I think I got it a little bit better than that because I got it at Woodman's in like 2019. Nice. So,
yeah, the grocery store one. I miss Woodman's. Talk about a cheese aisle or two. Did you know, Ben? Yes, go for it. Ooh, very, very loud. I dig it. Did you know, Ben, that outside of Wisconsin, cheese aisles are not full aisles?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I have been outside of Wisconsin, and I'm like, what, this little 4-foot section, that's all your cheese?
And they're like proud of it. They're like, look at all this cheese we got. I'm like,
you don't know 40 cheese, feet on both sides.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I miss Wisconsin. What's that place? right near Steve's. There's a it's right near the Target. There's a grocery store there.
Yeah, Metcalf's.
Metcalf's.
Yeah.
Okay. And Metcalf's would have um they would have not only like a huge cheese aisle, if not more than one. They would have like an ice cream aisle that like rivaled like a normal aisle. Like cuz like yeah, where I'm at is like ice cream takes up a quarter of an aisle in
No,
Virginia. But yeah, out in
no, we're the
Wisconsin,
dairy
they take
state,
their
man.
dairy seriously. Yeah.
Very seriously.
Yeah, and it's great, and they need to be proud of that. It's like Idaho. It's like you got to be proud of potatoes because they do it right out
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah, I can't.
So,
We don't have potatoes for crap. We need to get
hmm
Robbie stuff in here.
yeah. So, um, oh, it smells so good. Okay, so having gone from Glenmorangie to
Mm.
this has got a little more depth. It's got a little more. The other one, like Glenmorangie, was almost refreshing. This one's darker, but still really sweet so far.
Yeah, I mean, just on the look alone, I mean, it's a
Mm-hmm.
red terracotta tile color.
Totally.
But it's got that almost like not even like stone fruit. It's like dates or something. It's very kind
Mm-hmm.
of dense fruitiness to it.
I'm getting crushed blueberries a little bit. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, like blueberries make sense as it is, but like almost as if that like aroma's there and it's like just fresh crushed or like, I don't know, blueberry juice or something like that. I don't know.
I can get behind that. I always try and identify kind of what's the vibe on the sweet as well.
Mm-hmm.
And just on the nose, it's almost like a little mapley. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like the
Yeah.
everything has just a little bit of extra complexity to it, right? It's not a
Mm-hmm.
sugary, it's a sugary plus.
I like that because I was thinking like brown sugar doesn't fit this so much. Honey doesn't fit this so much, but also white sugar doesn't also like it's closer. You're getting closer to it, but I think maple syrup is actually the best way to frame this sugar level or like sweetness. Uh, oh, it smells so good.
Wow. So I went in for a sip,
Mm-hmm.
and man,
Mm,
it is just
mm.
popping for me. It is. I'm getting like orange oil
Ooh.
and a return to those dates.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's not quite prune level. There's something still kind of brighter and sugarier about it.
Yeah. I'm getting so you know when you say like dark berries, you don't always
Hmm.
think of like I usually think of like blackberries and raspberries. This isn't so much in that realm. I still get blueberries a little bit, but it eventually it complexified into a little bit of leatheriness, and then kind of finished with a nice sweet sugariness at the end.
Yeah, and I'm totally behind that because on the finish for me, it's starting to get it's that oakiness that isn't quite tannic, but
Yep.
it's kind of bringing that it's there, right? And I think that
Mm-hmm.
leather is one of those ways that comes out.
Yeah.
A little bit
Really.
of
Go
cigar
ahead.
leaf, like tobacco leaf.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can get behind that 100%. Um, yeah, like pre-smoked
Yeah.
tobacco for yeah. And this yeah, it's got it wouldn't call it in any way peated, but there is a little tingle to the
Mm-hmm.
tongue with it.
Little tang.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the reason I bought this bottle
Mm-hmm.
is that I went out to the best steak joint in Madison, hands
Nice. Where's
down.
that?
It's rare. It's right up on the Capitol.
Okay, I
I
love it.
think it's the best. And I was looking for something that would be able to stand up to a nice steak.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I figured an 18-year-old Scotch would do that. And
Totally.
man, I fell in love with it at that dinner. So this would be, um, that kind of sweet little tang complement to this rich,
Yeah.
seared, charcoaly, all of the kind of umami flavors of beef.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just such a
Totally.
great contrast.
I find this somewhere between like something like Glenfiddich, maybe even Balvenie. No, I'm going to take Balvenie out of the equation. Let's say Glenfiddich.
Yeah, no. Take Balvenie out of the equation.
Take it out of there.
Take it out.
It's just absurd.
Yeah.
But right between Glenfiddich and the crispness you can get from a Glenfiddich and the depth you can get from a Glendronach, it's right between the two. Like you're getting depth here, but not too much. But it's also like almost refreshing. But I wouldn't call it 100% refreshing, especially compared to the Glenmorangie. But yes, it's kind of between the two. If you're interested in buying a bottle yourself, if you like those two, maybe in the middle is perfect for you.
Yeah, I haven't done a lot of Glenfiddich. I do like the Glendronach.
Oh, I love Glendronach. Talk about a depth. Talk about raisins and plums and like dark sherry.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I like about this is that out of an 18-year with 4 years of it being sherry, they didn't like overdo it, right? You know, they kind of did what the amount they needed to get the effect they needed. So
totally, that's a really good point. Wait, I just dropped drops of water, and I don't think I've sipped it yet. Kind of the same notes. A little lighter, which makes sense, but sometimes that's not always the case. A little more white sugar. I'm not getting as much maple syrup on the nose, but I don't think I got it on the prior nose either. I think I got it more on the palate.
I'm getting a little bit of the leather on the nose. What's interesting for such a low proof whiskey, relatively speaking, on both the neat and the water, I've been catching some vapor, which, you know, not a lot, but it's, you know, I'm used to drinking 120, 130 proof things, and that there's any vapor at all is kind of interesting.
So, yeah, great water palette as well. I am getting a little bit of raisins from the water pour, but barely.
Yeah, and I'm getting a little bit more of not quite peat, but something tingly going on.
I don't after kind of finally getting the finish of it, I don't prefer it to the neat pour, but it's still good. There's nothing bad about it. Just
again, with what is this, 86?
Yeah, 86, so pretty low.
It doesn't take a lot to knock it down.
Yeah. But let's see what ice does to it. Give the old spin, Jay.
Make the whiskey dizzy.
As it should be.
I have the privilege of the bottle, so I can overserve myself.
Yeah. I mean, heck, I still have this much left, so I might even just finish it with the Whiskey World News. Okay, let me smell that again. It's really muted on the nose with ice to me.
Yeah. It kind of just knocks down to the peat low level effect for me.
Yeah.
It is colder.
Weird.
I can feel that in my hand. I'm going against the Paterson recommendation. I'm holding it by the bulb.
Yeah. So. He will kill you now.
Damn it.
Yeah.
He's got a good run.
Talk about
I had a good run.
Yeah.
Oh well.
When he dies, he will haunt you. Yeah. That'd be funny. Haunted by the ghost of Richard Paterson.
That I would
be that
sign
bad.
up for that in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
it would be so good. That would be great for parties.
I would just have parties to bring him out. Yeah.
Just summon Richard Paterson. Wow, for me, like raisins popped in.
Yeah,
strong.
Surprisingly much more. Yeah, this is becoming much more of like a sherry finished Scotch, even though it always has been.
Yeah.
This is definitely the weird thing is that the water brings it out. And you know what the funny thing is that Richard Paterson is all about dilution. Like he's not afraid to throw a little water in some Scotch. Like he's not about like you got to drink it at the proof it was bottled at. No, he's like, yeah, whatever works. So I'm sure he would love this.
Do you know? I mean, do they do anything that's cask strength or higher proof?
Mm.
We've talked about this before,
Dalmore
right?
or
Where
like Scotch?
Dalmore, right?
I don't know actually.
It,
I don't
it's
think
but
so.
you know,
But it's still.
we've talked about this before, where it's like, is it the American palate prefers higher proof?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and a
Just I
lot of
almost think
Scotch
it's
has
like.
been like engineered to be good
Mm-hmm.
in the 80 to 86
Totally.
range.
Yeah.
But it's so like we were talking about Bunnahabhain before.
Totally.
Bunnahabhain 12 cask strength. I just
Mm.
polished up a bottle of that earlier this week.
Oh, good.
It,
Love Bunnahabhain.
it's almost like too much. It's
Oh, is it?
almost over the top for me. Like
Mm.
the lower proof stuff on Bunnahabhain, I'm like, okay, that's a nice sweet spot.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing about Scotch, and I think some of the American way is that we're like very proud of things that are macho, especially because whiskey is not intentionally, but is taken a lot more by men than women. I think a lot of these men are like, "Well, I'm drinking something hot. I'm drinking something like I'm drinking hard liquor. I might as well make it extra hard."
There's a little bit of an like overlap or after effect of like, let's get effed up, man. You know, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know, it's more like party drinking than appreciation drinking.
yeah, 100%. So I'm looking into Dalmore cast strength, and I'm not seeing. I'm seeing like independent bottlings that were cast strength, but
Right,
not.
right.
Yeah,
Well, I'm
which is
pleased to know that they
another
do
great
some
thing about
independent
Scotch.
bottlings. Maybe I'll keep my
Mhm.
eye open for it, right?
Yeah, I see a signatory 28 year. Holy crap!
That's affordable.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, it's only 550 actually,
Okay.
which is
Well,
for a 28-year cast strength Dalmore. That's
yeah.
almost reasonable.
Yeah.
Like I would buy that before I bought another Yamazaki 18. I'll tell you that.
Well, there's that.
Yeah. I'm not mad, but I'm a little mad.
I'm
Yeah.
not mad.
That looks
I'm
beautiful.
disappointed. Get used to
Yes.
that phrase as your children grow.
So I took your advice, Ben, and I
Yeah.
started encouraging my daughter to, like saying, "Hey, tell me about Nolan." And I'll, dig into that. And it turns out that no names involved. But yeah, yesterday we get a call from the teacher and they said, "Hey, we can't say names, but Beck has hit with a block another kid. We imagine on the head with a block and broke the skin and left a big bruise."
Oh my.
And so that's a little concerning. At first you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh crap!" Like Beck could get kicked out of the school if she keeps that kind of attitude up. Which we've never seen any of that from her.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
the good news. Is like she doesn't have a history of this or like a tendency to do this. But we bring her home and we have a heart to heart with her. And she goes, "I hit Nolan on the head." And I'm like, "This
She
is
can
what I
use
get for
names.
being nice to Nolan." Yeah, exactly. But we don't know if it's Nolan. We don't know if it was but they weren't able they like did not they don't disclose that kind of they don't
Yeah.
disclose who
Yeah.
she hit or whatever. But it might have been Nolan, but it might not have been. But I thought that was funny. After I start
What?
accepting Nolan into the fold,
How old is she now?
she's not even 2.5.
Yeah. I mean, it's at that age,
Oh, you can't expect
it's
anything. Yeah.
it's so hard to like mix up to unpack like friendship and aggression and love
Mhm.
and hugs, and
Yeah.
it's
And like,
just
give
it's
me my
all
toy
tangled up
back.
into a ball. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Mhm.
that's doesn't seem terribly concerning to me.
No, yeah. And like even her teacher was like not like, accepting what was going on, but be like, "Hey, don't beat yourself up. Like she's been such a good girl otherwise." And like even they like made up and they've hugged and pretended nothing happened afterwards. And so that was good. But yes, I took your
Yeah,
advice and I started encouraging the idea of her being a good friend with this Nolan kid. So,
yeah. That's I.
yes.
It pays dividends, man. It totally pays
Yeah. No,
dividends.
I imagine it will. Yeah. So I needed to hear that. So good. Good ice pour. I don't know if it beats the neat pour, but it's not bad. Definitely a little more raisins, a little more of that sherry shows up. Darker sherry shows up. So I dig it. Um, Any other thoughts before we give a rating?
No, I mean, I think my favorite's the neat pour.
I'm gonna go back to the neat pour
because it, the ice pour for me kind of made it a little more singular. There was more complexity with the
That's a
neat
good
pour.
point with the leather and stuff. We didn't get that
Yeah.
on later things.
But I have a rating in mind, and it's, I don't know how much of it is tied up in, because this was a whiskey that came early in my whiskey journey. It came with a great meal at a great steakhouse, and so I'm sure there's a lot of kind of echoes of those things going on.
Yeah,
I'm like 9.0 on the nose. For me, it's Hubbard
nice.
at what. It's not extra, but it's also not sub. It's just right smack on the nose.
Yeah. I'm a little less, but not by far much at all. Only because this leaves me wanting a little bit more. So I'm gonna go 8.8 here. So very good, very good.
Yeah.
I really like the complexity that shows up with the like that leather note, that tobacco note. It's a great pour.
I would have figured you
love
for like an 8.852. It's
not
just
today.
the 8.8.
8.800. Maybe 01, but we're gonna round down.
All right, yeah, so, that's fair.
Yeah. I think this is. I would love to try it at 90 proof or like 95 proof.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what's the more? And I mean, the obvious answer is give it a little more proof. The King Alexander III is kind of the version of more there is let's throw some more complexity into it.
Yeah.
With some extra finishes and such.
But then again, King Alexander III is only 80 proof, so minimum.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's why I'm just starting to get into independent bottlers and
it's good land.
Yeah. So it's just like I'm figuring out what I like, right? A distillery that I know at cask strength is like that. That's the insta buy. If I don't already have one like that. I had a Mortlock that was phenomenal. I want to go back and try and get another. But it's just I want a little bit extra oomph. Let's take me over the edge from the I don't know, this traditional Scotch low proof stuff, man.
Totally. Did I think I've told you about this Mossburn I got from literally my father-in-law got it in Scotland. Dalmore barrel, cask strength, single cask, distilled in 2009, aged 12 years. Cognac barrel, and 63.7% alcohol by volume.
Nice.
And it is this is what I desire from Dalmore right now, is like just a little more oomph. I don't need it to be cask strength, but like this. Oh, Ben, remind me if I'm ever gonna like send you other things, which I imagine I will be, and I bring it up. Hey, I'm gonna send you this. Send the Mossberg, because the courier would love to bring you some of this.
Well, the cognac finish I've had with other whiskeys, and what's so lovely about it is that it brings some of that sweet without the kind of punch in the nose that a sherry cask brings.
Totally.
It's a lighter touch. It just adds a little dimension to it. Yeah.
Which French oak can be risky, especially with a bourbon to me. French oak, or even like a French whiskey. So far, I haven't been like blown away by French whiskey, but I really appreciate that they're trying, and I encourage them to keep trying.
Is it Maker's Mark 46? Is that done in French oak?
Yeah, it's French oak.
Yeah, and it's like, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's not my favorite.
Yeah, I don't prefer it to like their standard or their cask strength.
Yeah,
but they also do a 46 cask strength, which is cool. But I still love the
that was better.
Charred oak.
That was better. Yeah,
totally. And like Maker's cask is like amazing
for the
buddy price, especially.
I've told you before about he's also the Wisconsin history guy. Cool. I've been like bringing him along on whiskeys, and I find one that I like, and I try and kind of push him a little bit further. And so the Maker's Mark, he was like, man, the Maker's Mark, it just doesn't have any nose. There's nothing here. All right. And I bought 2 of the special casks with the staves.
Yeah.
And like radically different stave profiles. Like there was one that was 4 all the way to the left, and there was one that was kind of evenly distributed. It was so cool to walk him through those two and have him like notice the differences. It was really fun.
Yeah. No, I love that. And it's I brought this up last episode with Brian, but that was also one of my proudest moments. My proudest moment was with the second round of
dude, that was epic.
I was so happy. And I knew it. Like I wasn't even doubting. Like I was like, that's Maker's cast. I mean, that's Maker's barrel finishing series. Like I know it. Like I just know it. And you know what the funniest thing is? I think I mentioned this on the podcast. I've never had one yet. But I knew it was Maker's juice, and I knew it was funky. And so with those two things combined, I was like, it has to be one of the barrel finishing series. And I've had it since.
Yeah, and like you lost a point because you didn't get exactly which version or edition or whatever. But yeah,
but I still killed it.
Great.
Oh,
killed it.
Proud of
it was so good.
So anyway, I just poured the Mossberg, the Altmore, and it's just so much richer. And that's the thing. I wouldn't call Dalmore 18 velvety, but like a good Scotch, like a really depthful Scotch can be velvety, whether it's sherry finished or not, can be velvety. And I love velvety notes on single malts. And Dalmore didn't hit it, and I guess that's why I'm mostly leaving a little more to be wanted and giving it 8.8. So still good, still very good. So
I'm like an eternal optimist, and I'm always a sunshiny guy. So I think with the two that we've reviewed together, I'm about 0.2 above you. So I think that's the trend. It's like
exactly
a little sunshinier.
Yeah, I like it. I love it. Ooh, this Altmore is good. This Mossberg. And since I said Altmore and Mossberg at the same time, I think it might be time for our next step of the show that we like to call Whiskey World News.
All right, Whiskey World News. We're going to read an article. Didn't write it. Going to read it. Here it goes. Nice. There is a series of articles this week on celebrities rolling out new whiskeys. So this article I'm going to read is from USA Today. The author is Gabe Huari. I'm not going to spell it for you. Always Sunny in Philadelphia stars launch new whiskey. The stars of FX's It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia say their new whiskey, Four Walls, is a tribute to the bars and how they've shaped our culture.
Let me guess, it's Irish.
What? They teamed up to create something their characters would be happy to serve at Paddy's Pub.
I love it.
A new whiskey. Their new Irish American whiskey called Four Walls is now available nationwide. America. Spirit is headed for bars everywhere and can also be ordered online. So it's a 80 proof spirit. It's available for $35, and it's made in tribute to the Four Walls the gang calls home, the bar. The other article that came out almost at the same time, Jean-Claude Van Damme announced his new whiskey, which is actually a legit Irish whiskey made in Ireland. And it expresses his love of Irish culture, which I did not know he had.
Isn't he like French?
Yeah, but apparently,
But who doesn't love a good Irish whiskey? Am I right? Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
There was a whiskey that was in development, and he jumped in as an investor or something. And anyways, the spokesperson.
Well, at least he didn't hop in on a French whiskey yet.
So I have opinions. Cole, I'm wondering what you're thinking about this whole celebrity whiskey thing.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I too am a Philadelphian. If I were a celebrity and I was going to make my own whiskey, though,
in a way
it would have to be a killer Irish whiskey to take it. Like it would have to be like Redbreast status or like, I mean, there's a few Irish brands that I love, like Powers, John's Lane release, and like even like JMO 18, I can get behind. JMO Vintage, oh my goodness. But like it would need to be like top tier and I prefer a good single pot still. But not everything can be that. In fact, the Always Sunny in Philadelphia guys definitely didn't even do anything of that. They blended what did they say? What they blended the American, like what the American blend was?
No, it's not blended. I think it's an American whiskey done in the Irish style.
Oh, I dig that. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. That's pretty cool. I bet you it was like single pot still in that case, or at least like a blend sort of like
Yeah.
that, because
Yeah, but
you
I
wouldn't
mean,
expect
but
like
it's
single malt.
so they had done a higher end, like $200 or $300 bottle as a special release for
Oh, really?
fundraising during COVID. So they
Forgot
were
about
like,
that.
let's raise money for some people who need it. And
Mhm.
then they decided, wow, that was really well received. Let's do something. And so this $35 price point, I'll read from the article again.
Yeah.
After our higher end releases, it was important for us to make a whiskey priced that all of our fans could try and that bartenders would want to use in everyday drinks.
Nice.
Um, and that's great for bringing power to the people. My own opinion, I'm just getting a little tired of celebrities attaching themselves to somebody else's
Yeah.
juice. It's not like they got inspired and they really into whiskey, and then 5 years later, after the people they've been partnering with, they've been producing their own stuff.
Yeah.
There's somebody that's already got something going, or they're going and buying MGP juice or whatever.
Mhm.
And so I'm just tired, man. I'm just tired.
But let's give them some credit that they probably didn't get MGP juice for this stuff.
Oh, no, yeah. No, I get the vibe that this was like in the works for a
Mhm.
while and they jumped on, but
Yeah.
it's the other kind of stories that I've been seeing are about more
Mhm.
contract distillers ramping up,
Yeah.
and not everybody gets good stuff, and so
Yeah.
the $35 bottle that can be used in a nice Irish coffee is
Mhm.
not going to get me as excited as the stuff that you were talking about, right? So like
Yeah.
if you were to do it, you wouldn't want to do more of a Redbreast 12 kind of thing.
Mhm. 100%. Yeah. No, I'm with you. And it's the funny thing. It seems not forced, but sped up with some of these celebrity ones. Like you could tell, like some of them aren't ready to like put a solid age statement on their product. Like I
Yeah,
saw recently at the ABC store, I saw the Alan Jackson whiskey. I think it was a bourbon, but it's like 50 some dollars or more, and it's like no age statement, don't even know where it's from, any of that stuff. But it's like, do I want to try it? Well, I do love Alan Jackson. But do I
who
want to
doesn't?
spend that much and risk it on a bottle that I could tell wasn't super invested in? Probably not. Yeah.
Well, and so I'm probably being a little unfair because I start to associate it with all of the startup brands that
Mm-hmm.
are buying contract distilled bourbon
Mm-hmm.
and putting a cool label on it and getting
Yeah.
a good story around it.
Yeah.
Blue Run, and
Bullet.
maybe it's not
No, I'm
as
kidding.
great down the road, right? And
Yeah.
because they run out of their connections.
Yeah.
Um, so
That's a great point.
I'm obviously I'm not buying the $35 Irish American whiskey. I'm trying for
Yeah.
more things that are sippers. So God
Mm-hmm.
bless, but it's not my jam.
I'll tell you this. I would try it at a bar because I
Yeah,
got to know what an American or an Irish style American whiskey tastes like. I just got to see if it's close to like something like Redbreast, or I bet it's like a lot like JMO, maybe even like more watered down than JMO. But I don't hate on JMO. I can drink JMO. I would drink JMO over Jack any day.
yeah.
So no, I like that. Good article. We do have results from
Ooh,
last week's What Whiskey Would You Choose? So I'm gonna get to that real quick,
was it
and
one of mine or somebody else's?
I think it's yours.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it's
so I
yours.
get to find out if I'm a winner
Yeah,
or a wiener.
exactly. And I don't
Oh.
even know. I don't even know yet.
He's making the
Uh,
numbers up as he
I'm just
flies.
yeah, exactly.
Whatever the
So
question was, Cole won
yeah,
75 to 25.
I think you won actually. Yeah, you did win. Which accessible $40 to $60 whiskey would you choose for a beginner who has expressed interest in going deeper into the whole whiskey thing?
I recall I
I
said Rare
said,
Breed.
yep, and I said Four Roses Small Batch Select, and it was 39 to 61 in favor of Rare breed. So well done,
Nice.
Ben.
Yeah, that seems like a real vote of confidence for Ben Klepzig as a host.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah, seriously. Add that to your points. So we got results from what people chose, and Marco and AZ said green spot, red breast, Four
yeah.
Roses small batch select as well, sourced from my wife. Sourced from my wife. I don't know
I
what
would
that
take
means.
any whiskey source for my wife. Absolutely.
So we got a few of this next answer. Low class, high proofs response was Baker's 7-year.
Ooh,
Low, and he also said Russell's single barrel bourbon,
okay.
that is. And then
Haven't had bourbon
Embellish
for a
Pod
while.
also said Baker's 7-year, and he says except look for the ones with an 8-year on the neck. Ooh, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Said Nika from the barrel. It's about $60, 60 to 7 CAD, which is a Canadian dollar, which is about
$61
$50.
at Woodman's.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Is it easy to find out in Woodman's?
Yeah.
Really? I thought it was rare. I found one the other day, bought it because I was like, this is probably rare, but I don't see it much in Virginia. So, Whiskey Drinking Panda, I believe Joey T. That's Old Forester 1910, or the Prideful Goat. Joey T, are you from Wisconsin? Isn't the Prideful Goat from Wisconsin?
A Dancing Goat is. I don't know about the Prideful
Dancing Goat. Okay, I got to look up Prideful Goat then. Jason Preston said Elijah Craig small batch. True. Bryan Rapp, Makers 46 or Makers 101.
Oh, I like the 101.
Fish and Sips, Sean Ciaro said Old Forester 1920 as opposed to 1910.
God, I almost picked that myself. 1920 is a great intro.
I
Got the
have one
big
of those
cherry
on my
notes.
shelf. Yeah, it's great. And it's only like $55 or something like that. It's great.
Yeah.
Cowboys Bourbon, yeah, said most drinkers will pick rare breed, but keeping in mind this is for beginner. Oh, I guess he responded to the first one. Most drinkers will pick rare breed, but for a beginner, he picked Four Roses small batch select.
Okay.
And then
lower proof.
Bourbon Badger, Caleb Olson said Rowan's Creek, which is a Willet, or what is it? Kentucky Bourbon Distillers brand. So it's been a while since I've had Rowan's Creek. But Ben, you have what whiskey would you choose this week? I would love to hear it.
So inspired by our experience with Dalmore 18, I fell in love with that whiskey at a great steak joint. So
Nice.
What whiskey do you really enjoy eating with a favorite meal? Could be steak, could be something else, but what whiskey would you choose to go with a great meal?
So I'm going to stick with steak here because I do enjoy steak. And so that would be a great meal in my opinion. But I typically go bourbon when I drink steak. Or you know what I mean? I drink bourbon when I eat steak. But sometimes I'll blend it up, just drink it, mix it with whiskey and put it down. But what would I drink? I don't want to go like Pappy 12 or like a lot B or something like that because I do enjoy a lot B with, but I don't want to like flex that hard. What would be a good? Yeah, no, what? Eagle Rare. No, straight up Buffalo Trace, I think goes well with steak. Just can't go wrong. Enough sweetness, enough to work with that savoriness. Love it. Buffalo Trace.
So, okay, you've inspired me to think a little broader because the Dalmore 18 is what inspired this question, but that's a little frou-frou in terms of things that people can access. So I would say like a really solid rye, like an Ezra Brooks 7 rye. I'll say that Ezra Brooks 7 rye. Something that has a little bit of spice.
Rye.
Yeah, I mean, I love their 7 bourbon, but the rye is kind of special too.
Really?
Yeah.
When did they start doing rye?
A couple of years ago, man. I see it at Total Wine in Madison.
Huh? Look at that.
And
wow.
Cole,
and it's a 95.5 rye. So I imagine it's probably because who does Ezra Brooks? Is that that's what's it called?
Is that the Lux?
Yeah, I think it's Lux, which is owned by, what is it? Yeah,
I want
you're
to say,
right.
yeah, I
Whatever it
don't
is.
think I'm
Yeah.
totally right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm gonna have to try that. Gonna have to try that. Wait, so okay, I like that, and that'll be a fair battle when it comes to like you go the rye and like a decently affordable and more attainable probably
Yeah.
than Buffalo Trace. So, I went to the liquor store
You're gonna
today.
walk all over me with that, but that's fine. Go ahead.
I don't know. You never know. Some people think Buffalo Trace is overrated, but I was at the liquor store today, um, and saw John Bowman single barrel on the shelf, and I was like, I should
Really?
probably get some, but I didn't because I don't have a lot of money right now. And then I also saw uh, Jack Daniel's Barrel Proof Rye single barrel on there, and I was like,
Because
oh,
you
I
don't
should
have any
probably get
bottles of
some.
that. Yeah.
Well, that's that. Yeah, I already have 5. So I'm like, I probably don't need it. But then I've been thinking, you know how I'm like saving
Yeah,
a
you
few
want that
bottles of
sex? Yeah.
Bland and Eagle Rare for my child? Well, for the other child, I'm like, well, all these barrels of single barrel rye from Jack Daniels would be dated
He's so sweet.
2023.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when they turn 21, they'll have all these bottles from the year they were born. My second child, Gray. So I'm like, that would be pretty cool. But then, it's also really weird idea to hand your 21-year-old cast strength rye that tastes like 150 proof,
Ease him in.
even
You
if
got
it's
to
like
ease him in,
130.
man.
Yeah.
Ease him
So
in.
I'll be like,
Yeah.
hey, we won't drink it today, but you can have it. Yeah. So the funny thing is that like I will probably do more like because I already have a case of Eagle Rare for each of them. I already have a
Yeah.
case of Blanton's for Beck, and I was thinking, what if I just did like the Jack Daniels for Gray, but
The
like they already have
unforeseen
12 bottles apiece,
fights down
basically.
the road. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, you got the Blantons. I want the little horsies.
Yeah, they're gonna be 21 and thinking about the horsies. I gotta see how many what letters are on the ones but they're in a box somewhere. I set it aside already.
Yeah.
But anyway. Are you gonna like because when you have 2 daughters over 21 now, do you share whiskey with them at all?
Well, I have my son is 25, my daughter's 22.
That's right.
They're at kind of early stages of appreciating a nice drink, and
Yeah.
so it's more kind of fruity vodka drinks or
Yeah.
A fruity beer or something like that. So
Mm-hmm.
they're a ways away from that. It took me forever to appreciate brown liquor, man.
Yeah.
I
I'm with you
I was
actually.
a full ass grown adult before somebody poured me what is it, the Macallan, oh no, Johnny Walker Blue. I'm like, oh
Nice.
yeah, this is I can appreciate brown liquor now.
Yeah, especially with Johnny
That
Blue.
was that was my entry point on somebody else's expense account. So
Totally. So wait, okay. In Wisconsin, there are a lot of interesting liquor laws. Did you ever introduce your children to alcohol before they were 21?
oh, absolutely. I mean, the
Okay, cool.
thing with my kids is I wanted to demystify it,
Totally.
so that it wasn't like, ooh, this forbidden fruit. So if I would be
Yeah.
drinking something, they'd say, hey, can I have a
Mm-hmm.
sip? Give them a sip.
Yeah.
And in Wisconsin, and some people outside of Wisconsin may be surprised by this, we have
Yeah.
a very strong, proud tradition of drinking culture.
Absolutely.
And so as a parent, you can go
Mhm.
into a bar or a restaurant
Yep.
with a child who's
Order for
underage
your kid, or
and
even your
order for
kid
the
could
kid.
order for themselves.
Yeah, and as long as the parent's there,
Yeah.
it becomes basically the bartender's decision.
Yeah.
And so, but I could order a beer or a mixed drink or whatever for my kids. But I never really have had to because they
Yeah.
tried my stuff and they're like, oh, yeah, gross. And
Yes.
so, they kind of like, that's not their jam. They're not interested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's kind of what I think I will do as well, because it is legal in your own household in Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
as far as I remember. You can't do it at a bar or anything like that, or a liquor store. But that was the crazy thing. Working at Steve's is like, if a child walked up and said, I want to purchase this, and their parent was next to them, and I could prove it was their parent, and they and they approved of it, I could sell liquor to a child in Wisconsin. Crazy.
When I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
I honestly was probably 6 or 7 years old. My
Mm-hmm.
brother and I, who's 3 years older, we asked our dad if we could drink a beer.
Yeah.
And so he took, this is the 70s. He took these kind of avocado colored coffee mugs, and he poured a half a Budweiser into each of our mugs and let us sit on the back porch and drink a half a Budweiser.
That's
I
kind of
think
cool, though.
I mean, it's cool, and it's kind of the philosophy I've had, but I think it's why to this day I don't like Budweiser. It
Nice.
tasted terrible, man.
Oh, yeah.
It was so bad.
Yeah, I waited till I was 21 and I tasted it. I bought extra old cognac, Hennessy XO, and I hated it. It was like paint thinner, and I was like, "This is terrible." But it was like even 21, it was like, and it was mystified to me. Like it was like, "Oh, check this out," this crazy, pour. And I was like, "Oh, I hate this." And I was like, "I don't even know if I like liquor, or any like even alcohol." But I think it is somewhat healthy. The hard thing is, like when I lived in Wisconsin, some of my friends were not anti-alcohol, but they didn't drink at all. And I could tell that was in talking to them, it was because they had family members that had gone too far. So there's like a balance there of like, hey, introduce them and show, but there is like a very strong drinking culture in Wisconsin.
All things in moderation.
You get a lot of people potentially on one end of the spectrum or the other, but the people in the middle are doing it right, where it's like, hey, like all things in moderation. And
and alcoholism has a genetic component, so just be 100%. Smart, be aware of what your family history is.
And that's me too. Like I have family history, not direct family history, but like grandparent style history, where there's that, and I am very careful. And I've had friends, I've had people in my life that have pushed it too far, and I don't want to push it too far. And so I set my boundaries and say, I don't need this. And some days, to be honest, man, some days I just look at a bottle, I'm like, it's just liquid. And sometimes that's sad to think about for a guy who's been hosting a podcast for over 5 years, but I enjoy it. I very much dig it.
That kind of reminds me of when I was in college. I worked at a movie theater, and I would count up the receipts at the end of the night and go make the bank deposit. And so you're counting all of these 20s, 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 and I would have a $20,000 deposit, and there'd be these stacks of $20,000 in front of me. It's just green pieces of paper, man. It's not mine. It's not mine to covet. And I kind of feel like that's the vibe with sometimes with whiskey. It's like, no, that's just the thing. And when it's the right moment, I'll indulge.
Yeah, that's healthy. Well, I love it, Ben. Thanks for another great episode. Let me think. Next week. I told Starward that we will be drinking their stuff. The first episode back with the official podcast co-host. So if that's you, Ben, I hope you'll enjoy this Starward. So did I tell you what Starward is?
I know about Starward, but for the group, let's elucidate.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it last episode, but it is an Australian single malt company that they do some crazy things, and Australian single malts are no joke. Like I've had like Sullivan's Cove, and I've had some other stuff from Australia. They take their stuff seriously, and so I'm really excited to be able to do that. We have 2 pours from Starward. There's their Nova release, and then we have one of their single barrels. So keep an eye out. We're going to make it amazing. So, and then the other thing is they accidentally sent me 2 of each bottle. So whoever the co-host is gets a full bottle or full 2 bottles. Big shout out to Starward, especially for those dudes out in Australia killing it. So haven't even sipped it yet, but I know it's going to be good. So, well, Ben, I hope you do really well. I hope you kill it in the polls. But I think you've done very well to begin with. So
I hope that whoever the next host is has a ton of fun, because it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, Ben, if you don't make it or if Brian doesn't make it, you guys are going to be like the go-to, whoever it is going to be the go-to like hit up dude besides John Hughes. When it comes to
that's a distant second behind John Hughes. But,
No, we love you either way. So whether it's you or Brian, it's going to be amazing. But I hope John knows how much we love him too. But most of all, listeners, I hope that our love of whiskey lifted your spirits. This
She
is
can
what I
use
get for
names.
being nice to Nolan.